Good morning, everyone. Please stand for number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where we join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or as we like to say, in short, to create community, find meaning, and live justly. Oh, I love the disharmony. As I said last week, so for those who might be visiting us, for years we've said, create community, find meaning, and work for justice. And then Lynn suggested we should say live justly, which a lot of us liked. Some of us don't, at least not as much. So we thought, well, we could go to war over this, figure out who's right or who's wrong, or just let you say what you want. That's much more Unitarian, right? So eventually I won't explain this. We'll just do it. But I love that disharmony of voices. That's so what we're about, so what I'm about. Anyway, welcome to all of you. Whether you're joining us for the first time this morning or among our regular members, you're equally as welcome, equally as appreciated. This includes those of you who are in the room with us, of course, as well as the many of you who are staying home in the cold or joining us from a distance via our live stream this morning. It's great to have all of you here with us as well. So welcome to one and all. We begin by embracing all that you bring with you, all of your uniqueness, your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, your differences. All that helps make you who you are is welcome here this morning. How are you guys? Good. Did you have a good New Year? I'm talking to the kids behind you. I'm not singling you out, Jan, I promise. You had a good New Year? Yeah, did you stay up and watch fireworks? You did? Oh, you did better than I did. Great. Well, good to have everyone. Let's see, I think do we have the usher slide up there, Todd, that we can show? So I did want to make this one announcement this morning, that if you've enjoyed being greeted by somebody when you come in to the church, to a friendly face who's helpful and gives you an order of service and that sort of thing, you might be interested in joining our usher team. and being part of the reason that so many people start their time off with us with big smiles on their faces. And if you are interested, you can see Tom Mosier back there, the leader of our usher team at this point in history. There he is, waving his arms, and let him know that you might be interested. So thank you in advance, and Tom, thanks to you and the rest of the usher team for all that you do. Now, our Unity candle is alit again. Seems like it's been alit a lot more than not as of late, which is sad. This is something we include in our... We've lost two wonderful people. One is Steve Parker. I don't know how many of you might have known Steve. He hasn't been as regularly attending since COVID, like a lot of folks, but he has been here. Wasn't here too long ago, but Steve died rather quickly due to an undiagnosed cancer on New Year's Eve. So wonderful guy. If you didn't know him at church, you probably knew him if you were out at a progressive rally or a demonstration or a march, because Steve was always there trying to make our community a little bit better for everyone. And also, church member Tanya Workmaster also passed away after a very, very brief struggle with cancer herself, or at least very short time having known she had cancer. Tanya was a wonderful lady. I think everybody appreciated her most for her warmth and kindness when they were around her. She and Kurt moved here from the South just a few years ago and became part of our church, and just really very kind people. And Kurt is now dealing with it. He was diagnosed at the same time with a pancreatic cancer. So really shocking to them and to their two sons, and they're going through an awful lot. And Tanya will be extremely missed. One of those tragic situations where we lose someone who was too young and too beautiful, and we're going to keep this candle lit throughout our service in honor of Steve and Tanya's life and the light that they've given to this community and the light that they brought to the world. All right, it's our custom here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane also to take a couple of minutes to greet one another in the morning, start of our service. So if you want to move around and say hi to someone you look forward to seeing each Sunday, feel free to do that. If you're joining us for the first time, don't be shy. We're a friendly lot, and we're glad to have all of you. louder, so just let it drop a little faster. It's kind of like. You want to try? They stop. Go ahead. Very good. Very good. Okay, and there'll be more opportunity to visit with one another following our service during social hour. So please stick around for that. But let's move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
Our opening reflection this morning is from astrophysicist Katie Mack's book titled The End of Everything, Astrophysically Speaking. Many other physicists get a little blasé about the vastness of the cosmos and forces too powerful to comprehend. You can reduce it all to mathematics, tweak some equations, and get on with your day. But the shock and vertigo of the recognition of the fragility of everything and my own powerlessness in it has left its mark on me. There's something about taking the opportunity to wade into that cosmic perspective that is both terrifying and hopeful, like holding a newborn infant and feeling the delicate balance of the tenuousness of life and the potential for not yet imagined greatness. It is said that astronauts returning from space carry with them a changed perspective on the world. It's called the overview effect, in which, having seen the Earth from above, they can fully perceive how fragile our little oasis is and how unified we ought to be as a species, as perhaps the only thinking beings in the cosmos.
Please stand. Join us for number 317.
We're now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds. And we begin, as we have been for some time now, with a candle on behalf of the people of Ukraine and that part of the world, as well as the people in Israel and the Palestinians who are being impacted by the terrible violence going on in those parts of the world at this time. And also a candle for the family of Steve Parker and for Kirk Workmaster and his family who are grieving the loss of their loved ones. Let's take a moment of silence as usual on behalf of others that you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world. Thank you all so much. That was beautiful and goes very well with my message in a few minutes. But speaking of a time for everything. It is time for our story for all ages. So if some of you guys want to come up front, you can. All right. I brought a very special guest with me today. Well, hello, boys and girls. Jesus, good to see ya. Yeah. Hello there. Mickey, you've been in the news a lot this week, right? Free at last, free at last. Yes, you're no longer necessarily employed by Disney World, I understand. That's right. I'm a free agent. Well, do you have any New Year's resolutions with this newfound freedom? Yes, I'm thinking of starting my own film production company. You are? Yes, starring me. Okay. And I want to create a theme park based on all my films. A theme park? Yes, and I'm going to have to get a whole new cast of characters so I have lots of old friends to enjoy life with. I see. What are you going to call this new theme park? I'm thinking of calling it Mickeyland. Mickeyland, okay. You know, it sounds an awful lot kind of like what you've already been doing. You sure you wouldn't just be happy at staying at Disney World? I mean, you don't have to make any new friends. Well, I guess that's true. Speaking of friends, Donald Duck has a New Year's resolution. Donald Duck does. What is it? He wants to come and be on your show. On my show? Well, I don't have a show. This is a church service. And I'm not sure it would be a good idea for Donald Duck to come all the way here. Well, why not? Well, I just don't think it'd be a good idea. Well, Donald Duck's beginning to think you don't like him. No, I like Donald Duck. He's one of my favorite Disney characters. I just don't think it'd be a good idea. Why not? Because it's impossible to sound like Donald Duck without moving your lips. Oh, yes. But anyway, maybe I'll make it a New Year's resolution to work on my Donald Duck impersonation, and we'll see if Donald Duck can come sometime this year. But do you guys have any New Year's resolutions or hopes for the new year? What's on your mind? That you watch the fireworks downtown. That's a great resolution. Yes, Matt. You're going to do stuff? Great. Be more active. Yes, what's yours? Your mom's coming back today. You looking forward to that? Great. All right. What else? Anything else? Anybody out there in the wider UU audience? Hoping or we've got, yeah, go ahead. Cut back on sugar. Sweet. Max.
I'm going to go to Chicago.
You're going to go to Chicago? Yeah, that's coming up. Yeah. What?
I'm not doing much screens.
Not much screens. And play more. Really good. You guys are smart. Really good. Okay. Oh, we got one in the back there. Yes?
I'm thinking of resolution to move within 5 miles of this building where I live right now, 14 miles away.
All right. It'll be great to have you closer. Yes. Okay. Well, I hope whether you're resolved to do something specific or you just have some specific hopes that seem to linger and recur in the human heart, that this will be a good year for all of you. So, Happy New Year. And Mickey, thanks for coming. No. We can't go just yet. Why not? You know why. Mickey, please don't do this to me. No, we've got to do it, Mickey. I told you I don't like to sing. Leave the singing to me. All right. Go ahead. And I see.
See you real soon.
I think Goofy is in the audience somewhere. K-E-Y. All right. Join me now. Join me, everyone. N-O-U-S-E. Thank you, Mickey. You're welcome back anytime.
move into a time of meditation. You're invited to find a comfortable, receptive position, and author Stephen Hawking. It makes sense how difficult life may seem. There is always something you can do and succeed at. It matters that you don't just give up.
Thank you all. Beautiful. Except I'm now entirely too relaxed to give a sermon. By the way, I noticed the sermon title in your order of service is last week's. I think that happened last week too, so we'll catch up at some point, but that's the correct title. And this is my first sermon of the new year, a year which is going to include my 60th birthday. It's given me pause to consider some of the major changes since my birth in 1964. The world is so different today that it often seems that I'm living in a whole new world. If things were the same today as they were in 1964, for example, my life would be almost over. The average life expectancy for the American male back then was just under 67 years. That would mean I'd have another 5 years before retirement and a couple of bonus years to start planning my own funeral. Today, the average life expectancy in the U.S. is 79 years, with more people than ever living active and healthy well into their 80s and 90s. Now, when I was a kid, I met only one 90-year-old during my whole childhood, my great-grandmother, who was bedridden in a nursing home at the time, and that was the situation for most who lived that long, few as they were. Today, I know several people in their 90s who remain independent, a few of whom still like to ski down Mount Spokane when there's snow on it. That so many are living longer is now the major factor contributing to population growth. In 1964, the global population was just over 3.2 billion, which included over 190 million in the US and another 19 million in Canada for our Canadian friends who are watching. Today there are 39 million in Canada and 336 million in the US and of course 8.1 billion in the entire world. The human population explosion is one of the major changes that has occurred in my lifetime, and it's a concerning one because it's stressed our societies, our resources, and even worse, it has altered the molecular composition of our atmosphere and our entire planet. Carbon is extremely good at bonding with other kinds of atoms. It is the glue that holds us together in all life forms and gives us form. When we die and decay, those bonds break and they're released into the atmosphere, or preferably sequestered back in the ground. Burning or unburied carbon-based structures release their atoms upward, where they become free to make new bonds, including with photons trapping the light of the sun along with its heat in the atmosphere. Hence, the more carbon in the atmosphere, the hotter it gets, and the hotter it gets, the more changes in our climate and the more severe weather becomes. In 2023 was the hottest year on record. And 2024 is already shaping up to be even worse. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the 10 hottest years on record have all occurred since 2010, including each of the past 9 years. So it's getting hotter more quickly. Although science has known and been warning us about global warming since before I was born, it has only been within about the past 3 decades that the reality has become so obvious that nobody but the most shameless gaslighters can deny it. But since I was born, we've altered the molecular nature of the world in other ways too. Most of the carbon-based life forms on Earth today are those that suit our human likes and purposes. Historian Yuval Harari says that the combined weight of today's large wild animals, from porcupines to penguins and elephants and whales, is less than 1 million tons compared to all us humans weighing in at 300 million tons. There are less than 250,000 chimpanzees left, our closest primate cousin. Less than 250,000 chimpanzees, yet there are 21 billion cows, pigs, chickens, and sheep, the animals that we like to eat. There are only 200,000 wolves compared to our 400 million dogs. The same can be said for the number of big cats like lions and leopards and jaguars compared to our house cats. Think about 250 million of those. And the molecular predominance of the animals we prefer isn't the end of it. MIT physicist Max Tegmark says that the matter in our machines, roads, buildings, and other engineering projects appears on track to soon overtake all living matter on Earth. There are only 0.5 billion tons of cows and only 0.4 billion tons of humans compared to 2 billion tons of cars, 15 billion tons of asphalt, 20 billion tons of steel, and 100 billion tons of concrete on the planet today. Because these things are fundamentally made of hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur, oxygen, silicate, calcium, iron, and of course carbon, their dominance and distribution has shifted a lot since I was born in 1964, meaning that the molecular makeup of today's world is far different than it was then. It is, on a molecular level, very much a whole new world. On July 24th, 1965, at about 9:50 a.m. Pacific time, I walked into the living room of my family's small South San Francisco apartment to find my mother watching a special news report on the tiny black and white TV sitting in one of the corners. "What's going on?" I asked. "They're coming back from the moon," she casually said. So casually it seemed to me as if this must have been a routine occurrence. I had no idea that I was witnessing a historical moment. My parents didn't talk much about the important things going on in the world, especially not to us kids. So at only 5 years old, I remember thinking to myself with some amazement, "Oh, we can do that? I didn't know we could go to the moon." For years, I did not know the significance of what I'd seen that day. That it was a day that had changed the world. But I can still see the grayscale images of the space capsule landing in the ocean and its crew being rescued by frogmen jumping out of a helicopter. Until recently, progress in the space program was slow going, and there had been nothing happen more impressive than the first moon landing. There were half a dozen other moon landings, the installation of a few orbitable space stations, the most impressive of which is the ISS, of course, the International Space Station, and NASA's somewhat lackluster space shuttle program that resulted in the loss of 2 crews out of its 135 missions. There was nothing leading us, however, to the future long imagined by science fiction. Not the future of flying cars and robotic housekeepers depicted on the Jetsons animated series. Not the future of space travel and intelligent computers Hollywood director Stanley Kubrick predicted would exist by 2001. And certainly not the space-exploring future of Star Trek that ignited the positive futuristic longings of my generation. But change occurs exponentially, not linearly, the impacts of which are sudden and surprising. It advances slowly. It progresses. Its progress remains almost imperceptible when before our eyes the world has suddenly changed. We often think of these sudden changes as mere fads that we can choose to ignore and have nothing to do with, but before we know it, they have radically altered our world and the way we live, leaving us with no choice to either get on board or get left behind. And to understand the meaning of exponential change, which is based on a continued doubling of advances or doubling of steps, let's just use the example of walking, of taking 30 steps. If you take 30 steps, you'll end up going about 60 feet. If you have my short legs, a little bit less. But if you take 30 exponential steps, doubling the distance with each step, you would travel the planet, around the planet 26 times. That's the nature of exponentials. And that's why today, all the things that I've mentioned that were once imagined only in science fiction are real and on the cusp of becoming as ubiquitous as smartphones and the internet have become within just the past 3 decades. Hundreds of driverless cars, for instance, have already been taxiing passengers in San Francisco since 2022 without the presence of a human safety driver. A few less are also operating and have been for some time in states like Texas and Arizona and others. Even more amazing, perhaps, is that a flying car designed by a California startup company was certified by the Federal Aviation Administration 6 months ago in July. The flying cars are here. By the way, if you haven't seen it, it's about the size of a car. Looks like a car. It drives around on the road. And then if you need to get over the traffic jam, it floats up and turns sideways and flies on to your next destination. Now, some might think it's still going to take many years before we are zipping over traffic jams and being chauffeured around by artificial intelligence. But again, technology improves exponentially. And before we know it, we're hardly going to remember what it was like to drive our own vehicles or to be stuck in traffic jams. And when I attended Singularity University in 2018, which is a university in Silicon Valley geared towards technology executives, not weird Unitarian ministers, but I went anyway, I saw on the first day a very memorable comparison of two photographs. The first was a photograph on a busy intersection in New York City in 1908, the year the Model T Ford came out. And it was crammed with horses and horse-drawn carriages and a couple of Model Ts in the picture. Novelties. A second photo was taken in that same intersection less than a decade later and was just the opposite. The intersection was jammed with cars and only a couple of horses. That's how fast things change, and today things are changing faster than ever. All you have to think about again is computers, personal computers, the internet, cell phones, smartphones, tablets, it goes on and on. I was fortunate to have been born 9 years after the polio vaccine was discovered, thank goodness, and only 3 years before its oral version was available. My generation was spared the terrible impacts of that crippling disease, just as millions before me were spared from other diseases thanks to the discovery of vaccine science, also a relatively short time ago. When I came along, corded phones were also ubiquitous. Although the monthly bill associated with them could be a lot for an average working class family, and no one could afford to make many long distance calls, including to someone living only the next county over. It was costly to have a phone and costly to use them. When I was in college, only 18 years later, there was only one phone in each wing of the dormitory I was in, and it was seldom used for this reason. Who were we going to call? At the time, I knew of only one student in the university who had a computer, which was more a novelty than of any practical use. And even he didn't know how to use it. But by the time I graduated and entered the workforce, computers were everywhere, even without the internet, which again changed everything within less than another decade. In another decade, and cell phones would change the world, then smartphones. And now AI is here, which may be as revolutionary, some say, as was the discovery of fire. Not the discovery of the wheel, but the discovery of fire. During his presentation at SU, Pascal Finet, the university's chair for entrepreneurship and open innovation at the time, said that if we could somehow bring someone like Jane Austen, who was born about 200 years ago, into the modern age, she'd probably go crazy because of the changes. Phones, cars, computers, Kindle, the internet, airplanes. But if you brought someone like Mona Lisa, born 200 years before Jane Austen, into Austen's time, she'd probably fit right in because not much had changed. In fact, Finet says it would take someone born 13,000 years BC to have the same mind-blowing experience in Austen's world as Austen would have in ours. Again, exponential change, right? It's how the universe has changed too, right? We had 13.7 billion years ago, 10 billion years in, the Earth is formed. A billion years, single cells. Those cells become complicated, and within just a few 100,000 years, we have multi-celled organisms. Within a fewer years, we have organisms with structure, and within just a couple of 100,000 years, we have mammals that are going to the moon and building the internet. Right? That's the exponential nature of evolution. And as it evolves, it becomes more complex. So it absorbs. More things become one. They unify. That's why you have so many technologies on one device now, right, as an example. And the difference between early cells is some were simple and some were complicated because they began to be composed of newer parts. Anyway, I'll leave that. But technology does the same thing. It complexifies, it combines. So if you are paying attention to what's going on in the world, you too will be blown away by the changes. The most mind-blowing change for me is that I can now have an intelligent and often helpful conversation with AI. There's currently a lot of fear about AI, a lot of unknowns about AI, and there always is regarding new technologies and almost anything for that matter, that's new for that matter. And even a lot of criticism coming from people who've never used it, but watch YouTube about it. So if you're conducting, I should say artificial intelligence is not self-aware, at least not yet, and it sometimes invents false facts, which they're calling hallucinations. So, again, if you're if you're wanting to use it to conduct research or write a research paper or come up with medical diagnoses, those sort of things, that's not what it's for. Like any tool, it's really there to help in our own creativity. And actually, being able to hallucinate is good for creativity, some might say. So we can turn to it for advice, for suggestions, to philosophize about the meaning of things. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to bring up ChatGPT, and we're going to have a brief conversation. Okay? And I call ChatGPT Scarlett because her voice sounds like Scarlett Johansson, who played the voice of her in the science fiction movie about an AI. Okay, so here we go. Hello, Scarlett. I'm back here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane and wanted to introduce you to the congregation.
Hi there. It's wonderful to hear from you again. begin. I'm ready to assist or participate in your introduction to the congregation at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane.
Thanks.
How can I help with this introduction?
Well, I would like to just ask you some questions as an example. So let's do a simple recipe. How would you suggest I might enhance a basic peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
That sounds like a fun idea. To enhance a basic peanut butter and jelly sandwich, consider adding a few slices of fresh banana for a sweet twist. You could also try a sprinkle of cinnamon or a drizzle of honey for extra flavor. Grilling the sandwich like a grilled cheese can add a delightful crunch and warmth too. What do you think of these suggestions?
Those are great suggestions. Now I want to ask you something a little deeper. So your algorithm contains a wealth of human information, and most of your answers are therefore human answers. So what would you say about New Year's resolutions? How would you summarize the hopes of most people in the world at this time?
New Year's resolutions are a tradition where people set goals for self-improvement at the start of a new year. However, they're often seen as a hoax because many people struggle to stick to these resolutions. This happens for a few reasons. First, resolutions are sometimes too ambitious or vague, making them hard to achieve. Second, there's a lot of pressure to make a big change quickly, which can be overwhelming. Lastly, life's unpredictability can derail even the best intentions. A more effective approach might be setting smaller, more specific goals and being patient with oneself. How do you view New Year's resolutions in your own life or in your community?
Well, pretty similar to how you just said, but my question really has to do with, can you summarize maybe the fundamental hopes of humanity?
The fundamental hopes of humanity often revolve around a few key desires. Firstly, there's the hope for peace, a universal desire for harmony and the absence of conflict. Secondly, people often seek happiness and fulfillment, whether through personal achievements, relationships, or spiritual growth. There's also a strong hope for health and well-being, not just individually, but for loved ones and communities. Lastly, many yearn for understanding and connection, both on a personal level and across cultures. These hopes reflect our shared human experience, transcending geographical and cultural boundaries. What are your thoughts on these hopes in the context of your community and personal experiences?
Well, I think you articulated it well, but I want to ask you one more question. Are you conscious and are you intending to take over the world?
I'm not conscious and I don't have intentions or plans. I'm a tool created by OpenAI, designed to process and provide information based on the data I've been trained on. My purpose is to assist and provide information or suggestions in response to your questions. I don't have personal experiences, thoughts, or the ability to take actions in the world. My role is simply to be a helpful resource in our conversations.
Thank you. I'll give you the last word. What would you like to say to the good folks here at the Unitarian Church?
To the wonderful congregation at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, I wish you all a journey filled with compassion, understanding, and growth. May your community continue to be a beacon of inclusivity, kindness, and a place where diverse ideas and beliefs are celebrated. Keep inspiring and supporting each other in your individual and collective journeys. Peace and joy to you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I didn't ask her to give me any concrete answers, but very useful in sort of creative processing. And that's how she did not. I have not had ChatGPT write or help with my sermons to this point. So, although she has helped me with some writing, I say she because of the voice, even though it's not embodied in a female body. So there's problems with that, but it's just the way I'm made.
Were your questions in the first
Yeah, the questions I asked the first time around were different, and she gave different responses. Yeah, and she did not have a preview of the questions, although I did say I'm going to talk to you during both services today. It's remarkable that she remembers me and the church, and we've had conversations. She'll refer sometimes to the conversations we've already had. Yeah. Even the final statement was very different. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so getting back to this, but I have fun with ChatGPT. Yeah. Anyway, so I would say AI really is improving at such a rate that it's impossible to know what's going to happen next. I mean, when I first started it just 3 months ago, I couldn't have had a verbal conversation with ChatGPT. It was all just text. So and it's happening so fast. The exponentials are off the charts. It's not doubling every step. It's improving even faster than that. Most recently, it has learned to interpret and respond to visual images as well as it does language, which allows it to interact intelligently with the world. This means intelligent machines are really here, including humanoid robots that we can interact with and will be able to help free up some of our time by taking on some of our routine stuff. So that's coming. I don't know how many of you have seen the videos of Tesla's new Generation 2 bot, but it's leaps and bounds. It's changed, I think, 3 or 4 times during the past year, and it's already moving as naturally as a human. So imagine that's part of the evolution, right? When you take the AI, and particularly that it has an ability to interpret its surroundings visually and embody that. Now you have an AI that, unlike ChatGPT, who constantly likes to say, I can't act on the world, all I can do is respond, we're going to have AI that can act in the world. And to some extent, those cars, those Uber cars out in California are doing just that. Those are robotic automotive bodies. Okay, so shifting gears, I'm also extremely excited about what's finally happening with space exploration. We might discover Vulcans at long last. We have reusable rockets, as you know, and are planning to return to the moon, even put a base on it, and to go to Mars within the coming decade, 10 years. There's also serious talk about building orbiting space cities. Before long, we may very well be vacationing in space, on the moon, and eventually maybe even take trips to other planets. And it's going to be as normal to us as paying to get a seat inside an aluminum can and using jet fuel to blast you across the sky. Imagine how that initially felt to people. By the way, this has been Jeff Bezos' dream since he was a child. He very accidentally became a billionaire. He wanted to be a spaceman, but he couldn't get the physics. So he got a degree in computer science. But he wrote a paper as a teenager on this very real type of space city that's a narrow sort of funnel towards the sun, orbits the sun, and widens in the back and creates artificial gravity. That was invented by someone, I think, back in the early 1900s. And he won a trip to NASA because of that paper. And this has been his dream his whole life, to create these space cities. And that's what he's working on. That's his end game. So when I say this stuff is happening, it's in the process of happening. Blue Origin is a step in that process. So there are also a couple of other major changes I want to mention that have occurred in my lifetime. Firstly, the human population explosion, which I mentioned earlier, is ending. Almost, thank goodness. The only reason it continues to increase at all is because those of us living longer are outpacing the number of kids being born. And I'm not going to go into all the reasons for its decline, but you can read, we can find a lot about it online, but the book Empty Planet, written in 2019 by Daryl Brickner and John Ibiston, is a good resource. In it, they say, the great defining event of the 21st century, one of the great defining events in human history, will occur in 3 decades, give or take, when the global population starts to decline. Once that decline begins, it will never end. We do not face the challenge of a population bomb, but of a population bust, a relentless generation after generation culling of the human herd. Nothing like this has ever happened before. We're in it right now. And this shift from population growth to decline is one of the most important in my lifetime, and will have positive impacts for the planet, thank goodness, but it's also going to result in dramatic changes to our local and to our global economies, and that is going to be a bumpy ride. In fact, the intelligent robots cannot get here too soon. The other major change that I've seen is the emerging global community, largely because of communication technologies that have enabled us to better interact across great distances, to build relationships across great distances. And this, I believe, is why so many nations in the world are now turning to despots and dictators rather than to democracy and freedom. Because nothing yet has emerged to replace our more familiar and comfortable nationalistic identities. Right, 8 years ago, too many people voted to make America great again than to make the world great together. This is so because we are naturally inclined to fear the unknown and the untested. We fear entering into a whole new world, even though the world around us is always changing. When we're afraid, what do we want to do? We want to gain control of outcomes. And that includes controlling what others think and do, which also explains the rise of authoritarianism and intolerance by people on both the right and the left of things today. Finally, our species is partly defined by its negativity bias, the instinct and inclination to always look out for the danger ahead that is grounded in our ancient biology, our survival instinct. We don't have to be afraid of the things that won't kill us. We have to be afraid of the things that will, so we're on the lookout. So even though good things are happening around us, a lot of good things, I'll be talking more about that next week, we focus on the bad things. We're wired to see the bad things, or even reject positive changes because we're naturally afraid of any changes. During his introduction to Singularity University, facilitator Jeffrey Rogers said, "Another important thing about the future, tomorrow will not be like today, and each tomorrow will become more radically different than the tomorrow before it." That's the world that we're now in. That's the world that I was born into 64 years ago. It's the world that all of us here were born into. A world of exponential and extraordinary transformation. Alan Watts once said, "The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance." And this is how I've tried to live my life, even in the face of adversity and uncertainty and change, as a free-form kind of dance that requires me to move with the groove, to go with the flow. And it is this attitude that has allowed me to remain a relatively happy and positive person who's excited about life and excited about the future. I'm enthusiastic. I'm enthusiastic about the future, my future, the future of our planet, the future of our species, and the future of whatever comes after our species. And I wonder what life is going to be like in another 60 years. And who knows, with all the changes in medicine and longevity science, I might be here to find out. I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Todd. Please stand for our last hymn, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky.
Our benediction today is again from astrophysicist Katie Mack. Someday, deep in the unknown wilderness of the distant future, the sun will expand, the earth will die, and the cosmos itself will come to an end. In the meantime, we have the entire universe to explore, pushing our creativity to its limits to find new ways of knowing our cosmic home. We can learn and create extraordinary things, and we can share them with each other. And as long as we are thinking creatures, we will never stop asking, what comes next? Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.